On this video on Kevin's Creations, we're going to be working on a Poor Boy Polaris again. Got it up on the lift. It's fixing to get a lot fatter in the rear end. Going to get a lot wider, go into a solid axle. Have to tear into the transmission and take care of the issue of I did have it welded in the back end and now it's not. So I'm going to put a solid axle in it in the transmission. So I got to take all the back end out from underneath it, probably widen the fenders out, and I'm going to have to make it substantially stronger. So I'll probably be putting some bearings further out at the wheels to give it a little more strength where all the pressure is not on the transmission case. So welcome to Kevin's Creations. As you can tell, it's a pretty major teardown, but we're getting there. Well, we've had to take the side panels back off, the fenders off on both sides, and we still don't have the rear end out. We're going to drop it next. While I've got access to the motor, I'm going to drain the oil out and do some other maintenance things. Let's continue. Okay, I got it apart and it looks pretty nasty. I'm gonna have to probably get all of this grease out of here and clean it up, because actually I'm gonna run like a really thick oil in it when I put it back. And of course all of this piece right here is what will be changed to make it one solid axle. But I'll get this tore apart and show you what it looks like on the inside. But I got quite a bit of cleanup to do. Well, other than a few chunks of metal that I dug out of here, you can't even tell I had welded it. The weld didn't melt into the hardened metal of the gears at all. So it just ground all that weld up in it. So I'm going to see if I can figure out a way of locking this thing and holding a straight shaft through it. But I'll just have to tinker with it a little bit, see if I can come up with something. Alex is loving his job right now, aren't you, Alex? No? You don't like that? That's man stuff right there. No? Okay. I'm looking at these parts thinking maybe about drilling and tapping these collars and putting set screws in there in both sides here. because they go onto here, and that should actually lock it to the axle. When I put set screws in there, I may actually drill it into the axle a little bit, where the set screws will go into a pretty good point in the axle once I figure out for sure where it needs to be. But I think I'm going to try that first and see what that does. On these stock shafts, they narrow down to like 7/8 thickness, from 1 inch thickness here to 7/8 thickness here. So these pieces right here were drilled out 7/8, so the 1 inch axle would not go through them. So I've had to drill these out, and I have to make sure that the bolt holes on each side line up, because they're staggered. There's different spacing between the bolt holes, so I have to make sure those are all lined up. So then I made some marks right here and right here, and then same thing on the other side where the keyway is, right here. And then I don't know if there's one underneath this one or not. This keyway goes up so far and ends. But what I'm going to do is drill these out and put some set screws in there to actually screw down into that keyway to clamp this whole mechanism to the shaft. When it goes in here, of course, these bearings slide up and go into the space. But that's what I've got going on so far. So let me get these drilled out and get them tapped and see if I can get some set screws in them. I'll Loctite them in where they'll really hold good. And I had to make sure that I had the same distance from here to the end and from here to the end, so that it will be centered up. But let me get those set screw holes drilled and tapped. It's all back together. I got my holes drilled for the set screws. I don't have any set screws that are the right length, so I'm going to get some in the morning and some red Loctite so that will really hold those in there, because I do not want them coming out in the transmission. So it's all back together, and you see how much longer the axle is. I'm anxious to get it on there and see what that puts my tires at, how wide it puts them. I don't want them overly wide, but yet I want them wider than what they were. So I think this is going to be just about right. So, alright, I've drilled and tapped these holes here. I've also drilled into the axle slightly. It's going into the keyway, but I made it even a little bit deeper than the keyway, because I do not want these pins to come out at all. And I have some of the Permatex red thread locker that I'm going to put in there, because I do not want these backing out. So let me get that done and we'll try it. Alright, I didn't show you putting all this sealant on here, but I put some gasket eliminator on there, so silicone type stuff all the way around it to keep the oil in it. And we'll see if I can slide this back together without too much trouble. It actually did go back together. Alright, well, one thing I'm going to have to do is take this Allen head set screw out, and there is a ball bearing that goes down inside of there and a spring that pushes on that notched thing so that when you click the gears, that's what clicks. It holds it in each gear. So I'll take that out and find that spring and ball bearing and put back in there. Alright, I got the ball bearing and the spring put back down in here, and how hard that stays in gear determines on how tightly you have this run down in there. If you want it to hold in gear really tightly, you run it down in there, and it puts a lot of pressure on that ball that fits in grooves that are down there for your different gears. So that's what that does. And then I got this bolt put down in there. We had to remove this to get to that bolt. And I don't remember which way this goes on. I think it's this way. Don't remember for sure. Get that keyway in the slot because it just keeps pushing it out every time I push down on it. Well, I was supposed to put the oil in it before I put all the cover on it, but I'm using really heavyweight oil, and I'm having to put it in through the hole where the spring and ball goes through there. So I cut a hole in the top of the container and just stuck it down in there. And it's going to take a while. So I'm going to sit here and eat candy and wait on it to flow in there.
Yeah, my Easter candy.
Okay. Well, I got the rear end back under it and kind of just stuck the tires on there where I could see about how wide it's going to be. And I kind of like it because if you look, the tires were pretty well in line, and they're setting out about 3.5 inches, maybe 4 inches wider on the sides than they were. Because like I say, the tires were pretty well, they were lined up if you look at them about like that. But you see how much offset they are to them now. But I think I'm going to like it that wide. I think it's going to be really good. We got to put it all back together. But what I'm going to do is come in here with a, kind of like I did on the back of the blue go-kart, and put a pillow block bearing right here at the wheel, which is going to mean I'm going to have to bring some steel pieces kind of like up here to this piece, down to the axle, and then back up to maybe this floor piece right here. Do something like that to give it stability. That will keep the stress off of this axle right here at this bearing, with having so much tire sticking out past the bearing. So I'm going to have to get some of those in and get some steel pieces to be able to fabricate that up. That'll be the next step. In some of the previous part of the video, I had 2 nuts used as spacers in here. This L bracketed out, and bolts went down through these holes right here. Well, I didn't like using those as spacers, so what I'm doing is I've made this piece right here, which might be a little bit hot, so I'm going to put my glove on. It's crude, but it's what I had. And it will mount on there something like that and come to this second set of holes out here, just to give it a lot more strength and not have to use shims on it. I've got this side already over here already welded up. Kind of see what that looks like. But that way it's going right down to the transmission and holding it straight to the transmission, which should make it a lot stronger. I'm still going to put the bearings out here on the end and brace them some kind of way. But let me get this other side welded up. Well, y'all seen me do enough welding, so here it is welded up. It's kind of crude, but hopefully it'll work good. Now we'll move on to putting the bearings on the shaft and getting them mounted. Alright, I've got the bearing on there in the place where it's going to be. And then I'm going to take a piece and run it from here up to here. So I got to get my angle and get it cut off and get it welded on there. Alright, I've got the pieces just tacked in place. Just trying to make sure everything looks like it's going to line up correctly and be straight. Looks pretty good. I get this all finished, welded up, and go on to the other side. Got this side welded up all the way. So I'm going to get around here to the other side and get this one made up too. I'll do the same thing on this side. Then get it all welded up. Alright, got it welded up now on both sides. Get a little paint sprayed on it. Get the tires back on it, and then I'll test fit the fenders and see how I'm going to mount them. That's kind of where it was sitting. The tires are going to be considerably further out. Guess I need to set the tires on there first and then see how this lines up. Well, just one more look at what I did. My new mounts here, new brackets I made here, and of course the pillow block bearing here, and the bars I got coming up to the frame. Gonna get the fenders put back on and the body panels put back on. Get it down on the ground and do a little test ride. Well, you can see how far out past the fenders the tire's sitting now. I'll probably have to make me some fender extenders. I just kind of rinsed it off a little bit, get it cleaned up. But that's going to do it for this video on Kevin's Creations. Please subscribe, share, and like our YouTube channel, and also look us up on Facebook under Kevin's Creations, and be sure and like our page on there. Thanks for watching.